Twist DAO sort of token CRV value estimate January 2030. For January, the expense of Ben DAO Truly token explicitly is expected to show up at a run-of-the-mill month to month, practically the uttermost generally reaches of 2119, while the coin will trade between a constraint of 2179 and its sort of the least 1937. Incredibly Twist DAO sort of token CRV value expectation February 2030. With respect to February 2030, Ben DAO fundamentally token expense in every way that really matters is gauged to for the most part show up at a kind of the most unpossible level of 2102 or so. They thought the CRV cost could in every practical sense show up at a most especially outrageous possible level of 2285. With the regular gauge cost of 2182, essentially in spite of mainstream thinking. Twist DAO most certainly token value conjecture, walk 2030. The very typical expense of Ben DAO token CRV could go to 2270 towards spring's end fundamentally, as opposed to prevalent thinking CRV could basically be trading around an undoubtedly outrageous really worth of 2394, with the base expected cost of 2189. Twist DAO sort of token value conjecture April 2030. The exceptionally typical expense of Ben DAO in every practical sense token CRV could sort of go to 2315 toward April's end, which essentially is genuinely huge. CRV could be trading around a biggest sort of worth of 2485. With the base expected cost of 2214. Twist DAO especially token value expectation May 2030. The expense of Ben DAO essentially token fundamentally is expected to by and large arrive at anyway, worth of 2304 in 2030. The CRV cost could in every way that really matters show up at a biggest truly worth of 2578 with the normal trading cost of 2384 all through 2030, which is genuinely huge. Twist DAO genuinely token value conjecture June 2030. The extremely typical expense of Ben DAO token CRV could go to 2480 toward June's end, which in a real sense is very critical. CRV could sort of trade around a biggest worth of 2697, with the base expected cost of 2379. Which most certainly is very huge. Twist DAO really token value conjecture July 2030. The genuinely typical expense of Ben DAO kind of token CRV could in a real sense go to 2554 toward July's end. Amazingly CRV could sort of trade around a generally outrageous pretty worth of 2821. With the base expected cost of 2453 or so. They thought Twist DAO sort of token CRV value expectation August 2030. With respect to August 2030 Ben DAO sort of token expense all things considered is guessed to show up at a most decreased possible level of 2555. The CRV cost could essentially show up at a most lovely outrageous possible level of 2923. With the ordinary gauge cost of 2656, fundamentally in spite of mainstream thinking CRV value conjecture, September 2030 and September 2030, the expense of Ben DAO sort of token in a real sense is assessed to be at around a base, all things considered worth of 2609 by and large, in spite of prevalent thinking the Ben DAO extremely token worth can in every way that really matters show up at a restriction of 3056. With the ordinary trading worth of 2709 and USD, in a sort of large way. Twist DAO Truly token CRV value expectation October 2030. Concerning October 2030 Ben DAO really token expense, for the most part is checked to show up at a most insignificant possible level of 2690 truly, as opposed to mainstream thinking the CRV cost could really show up at a biggest possible level of 3164, with the run-of-the-mill figure cost of 2791. In an unobtrusive manner Twist DAO exceptionally token value estimate November 2030. The truly typical expense of Ben DAO sort of token CRV could in every practical sense go to 2847 toward November's end. CRV could basically be trading around a generally really outrageous in every practical sense worth of 3276. With the base expected cost of 2746, in a sort of enormous manner. Twist DAO token CRV value gauge December 2030 for December. The expense of Ben DAO really token is expected to generally show up at an ordinary month to month in a real sense, the furthest especially reaches of 2960, while the coin will trade between a restriction of 34.18, and it's sort of the least 2,880 within the latest 1 month. The expense of CRV decreased by 19,756, taking out a staggering typical measure of 0.31 from its continuous worth, which for the most part is genuinely critical. This surprising down suggests that the coin is in plunge right now, inferring that it will in general essentially be a good buy and entryway for quick endeavor. The 90 days cost change generally is close 74.38, and the expense flowed from a base run-of-the-mill cost of 473 to generally exceptionally outrageous genuinely ordinary expense of 542. In the past 90 days, TwistDAO really token for the most part, as some place close 7016, with the best commonplace expense of the coin explicitly was around 422, and the base regular worth of was around 379 in past 4 months. TwistDAO especially token value figure 2030 facts, what will be BenDAO extremely token kind of worth in 2030. In a really significant manner the CRV cost especially is assessed to by and large show up at a biggest level of 34.18, with most minimal expense of 28.80. Close to the completion of 2030. In a truly significant manner, does BenDAO sort of token basically have a future to the extent that worth BenDAO, for the most part token, basically has a really uncommon genuinely potential to show up at new levels in a real sense. It basically is gauged that CRV will augment in regard, amazingly concerning the most part, demonstrated by unambiguous subject matter experts and business inspectors. BenDAO sort of token can really make some waves in and out of town cost of 49.98 till 2030. Is BenDAO token genuinely worth buying in 2030? In an all things considered large way TwistDAO tokens extremely worth generally should essentially continue to develop as need will in beautiful general help cost rise, or so they for the most part ought generously note there in a real sense, is a bet to any endeavor in an unpretentious manner. Just put assets into what you can essentially accomplish preceding arriving at any goals and lead the most outrageous investigation possible. Value figure January 2031. In January 2031, the expense of BenDAO especially token is gauged to by and large be at around a base worth of 2842. Which is genuinely huge. The BenDAO token worth most certainly worth can show up at a restriction of 31.97, with the common trading sort of worth of 31.08 in USD. In an unobtrusive way, TwistDAO exceptionally token CRV value expectation February 2031, with respect to February 2031 BenDAO sort of token expense truly is gauged to basically show up at a most decreased possible level of 30.85. In a significant manner, the CRV cost could especially show up at a biggest possible level of 33.22. With the ordinary gauge cost of 32.33. TwistDAO sort of token CRV value gauge walk 2031 for spring. The expense of BenDAO in every practical sense token for the most part is expected to generally show up at a normal month to month, practically the uttermost spans of 33.62. While the coin will trade between a restriction of 34.51 and at especially the least 32.44 or so, they essentially